episode 3 of season 2. And today we're talking about LinkedIn ads. I think a lot of people know that they need to figure it out, but they haven't quite cracked the code. They feel it's expensive, hard to prove the ROI, or are struggling in a number of other ways. Luckily, our speaker today has quote unquote cracked the code, if you ask me at least. JD Garcia, SVP of Revenue and Growth at Impactable. He'll be joined by Nadia Davis, VP of Marketing at CaliberMind, and I'd love to bring them onto the stage.
Thank you, Mary. Hey, G, how are you doing?
I'm caffeinated. How about you, Nadia?
I kept it at 3 cups so far. I might go back. I love the story of your watch telling you that if you're exercising right now, your heart rate is really high. That's how you know that you had one too many coffee cups. I need that watch.
Yeah, it hasn't triggered today, so I think I'm gonna keep this little caffeine train going.
Keep it going. I love it. Well, I feel like, first of all, I'm so grateful that you came on the show. And I've been on LinkedIn for long enough to think that I'm one of the early adopters. I remember it was 2016, early 2017. They were rolling out their paid ads, and this was new. Like Google Ads at the time was it, right? And the LinkedIn UI for paid ads was like so simplistic. And I remember me and our web strategists were looking at it, trying to figure out, how are we setting this up? Is it a go? Is the card in the right place? Like, will it start showing our ads? And they sent me this sticker. I guess the early adoption group received that sticker. It was called LinkedIn Aficionado. I was so proud of that sticker. I put it on my laptop. I'm like, everybody in my business needs to know that I'm doing these amazing things and, in programmatic marketing. But since then, things have changed so much. And the pace of change has gotten even faster. I feel like over the last 6 months, 7 months, with advent of AI and everything else. So what are you guys seeing? Like, what's your take on the state of LinkedIn today?
So LinkedIn, and I might get flack for saying this, but it's the truth, so I'm gonna say it. LinkedIn is just another channel. It's just another channel. It's like Facebook, it's like paid search, it's like Reddit or X. It's just another channel where people spend their time, and that's it. Now, if your audience and who you're targeting, if they're on LinkedIn and that's where they spend their time, then that's exactly where you should be. But part of what we'll talk about today is going to be really about kind of audiences and helping to answer the question, to what extent should I be focusing on LinkedIn as part of my GTM? Now, a little bit of a spoiler alert, not everybody should be going as hard as everybody talks about on LinkedIn. So if you go and you look at LinkedIn, you look at people that are talking about LinkedIn ads, they'll talk about ways that you can structure your funnel, how you can reduce your CPL, how you can generate pipeline, how you can generate revenue, and how like you're missing out if you're not actively engaging and leveraging LinkedIn. Now, obviously, because of the work we're in and because of the partnership we have with LinkedIn, I agree with that. But I also don't agree with kind of blanket statements that everybody should be doing kind of everything, because you can't just, use kind of blanket advice like that. So my short answer, which that was a long one, is that LinkedIn is a great place to establish thought leadership, to share your content, so long as that is where your audience is spending their time.
And I feel like depending on what industry you're in, and I'm kind of, leveraging my experience here, being in industries where we were still in the technology space, but we had older audience, to your point, that was not spending their time on LinkedIn. They had their profile pictures from when they graduated high school, or maybe that was their wedding picture with, nice tuxedo and whatnot. And I knew that they were, way beyond that. They were baby boomers. And yet the pressure to do something on LinkedIn because everybody else is doing it, at least in your industry, at least your peers, right? They're telling stories, they're showing growth hacks. Everybody's got the biggest microphone teaching you life. And that fear of missing out and kind of bordering on imposter syndrome is real. So how do you address that? How do you leverage expectations in the org? How do you talk about it? And then the spend justification comes about. And like, I don't really know, what should I even use for,
Yeah.
Whether this is working or not?
To me, it's always, so I have this question that comes up a lot when we're talking to people that are considering running LinkedIn ads. So we have, on any given month, between about 50 to 100 conversations. I know that's a broad kind of range, but it's usually somewhere in that range where we're talking between 50 to 100 prospects each month. And a lot of those prospects have kind of been following us for a while or been seeing these things, and they're asking the question, we need to grow. We have a round of funding coming up. We're trying to IPO. We're in growth mode. Maybe they're privately funded. They're in growth mode and they're trying to expand. They have a new product. They have a new segment, something. There's a catalyst for them. And now they're looking at kind of LinkedIn. But the thing that they don't know is they don't know, what should I spend? And that's really the question that they have, because they're convicted that LinkedIn is the right channel for them, but they don't know what to spend. I'll kind of back this up and answer your question by saying it all determines, it's all based on what your expectations are. My approach and what I tend to advise is more of a conservative approach. If you haven't run on the platform before, you can look at benchmarks. You can look at what other people are doing. There's a LinkedIn ads library, so you can go look up your competitors and say, like, what are they doing? And use that kind of as a way to see like what the opportunity is. But you don't know what you don't know until you've actually kind of run things yourself and establish kind of your own data. So my stance is usually to take more of a conservative approach. And the best way to do that for LinkedIn is to start with the audiences that actually know your brand. So if you're somebody that's considering LinkedIn, you have pressure from kind of leadership, they're saying we need to be leveraging LinkedIn. If you go after a cold audience, somebody that's never heard of you before, they don't know your brand at all, you're going to spend quite a bit of money. And if the task that you're given is to go prove the channel, which means you need to go get leads from the channel, then you are going to fail. You're going to. I'm going to say that with almost 100% certainty, that if you're going after people who have never heard of you before and your initial offer is to get them to fill out a form or go to a landing page so they can convert, so your sales team can reach out and then they're going to be ready to start that conversation, you're going to fail. What you should do is you should start with warmer audiences that know who your brand is already. So if you're running outbound right now, you have a sales team that's reaching out to people. Those people, you can help to warm them up, or you can start to kind of work with sales to market to them. Your CRM data, if you have closed loss opportunities, if you have attendees or event lists, if you have other kind of first party data or audiences that are already familiar with you, website visitors, company page visitors, those would be the audiences to start with first for two reasons. One, it costs less money to market to a smaller audience. You don't have to spend as much. And I can give an example of something we're doing ourselves that I think would be really interesting to listeners. But then two, it's much easier to saturate a much smaller audience. So if my audience size is 50,000 people and I have a little budget, they gave me $3,000 to spend, there's no way that I'm going to be able to saturate that entire audience. It's not going to happen. So the amount of signal and data that you get back to help either move people down the funnel or generate insights that allow you to build confidence internally to continue, it's really difficult to do. On the flip side, if that audience size is, let's say, 5,000 people, well, then you can saturate them pretty good. So that audience size, there'll be a portion of that audience that's logging onto LinkedIn often enough for you to actually be able to deliver impressions, and you'll have a high enough ad frequency that you'll get multiple opportunities to get some type of engagement with those folks.
Every single LinkedIn rep that I ever had would tell me that the rule of thumb is not to shrink your audience down beyond, I feel like that number changed, 40,000, 45,000. But to your point, if you are going after a very small niched audience, does that mean that you slow down kind of the run of the algorithm trying to reach these people? Will it take you longer? Or is it just the whole wise tale that they're telling you because LinkedIn is interested in you spending more, having that bigger audience?
I don't know for sure. I can take my guesses about that, but I won't do that. But they do recommend that to have your audience size. And Mary, yeah, you're right. 50,000 is the magic number. Even if you have like a really small audience that's only 5,000, I've had this many times where the recommendation is to go broader so that you can actually spend your budget. So it's like, so you want me to target people that can't buy from me so that I can spend the money for my budget? No, no, don't do that. That's not advice. So I don't know for sure why they give that recommendation. I think it's one of those things that's just like a blanket recommendation because of the algorithm and it being able to deliver impressions. But honestly, it does not matter. I will die on this hill. Your audience is your audience, period. No matter how big or how small it is, you should only be targeting people that can actually buy from you. And if that number is smaller than the arbitrary 50,000, that LinkedIn says, then so be it. That's the people that you need to target. Now, the thing that you need to keep in mind with that is that you're not going to be able to compare yourself to others. So if you are looking at your competitors or you're looking at other people in an adjacent kind of, company, you may look at them and say, okay, their CPM is $50 or $100 to reach out to this particular audience. But because my audience is so small, my CPM is like $200 and $250. Does that mean that I'm doing something wrong? No. You are decreasing the audience size, so you're forcing the CPM to be higher because you're limiting the number of people that are actually being exposed to your content. And that's okay. I'd rather spend a $200 or $300 or $400 CPM targeting people that can buy from me than a $10 CPM targeting people that couldn't ever purchase from me.
Actually, I want to ask you whether you would be okay sharing the example that you kind of shared with me when we were talking behind the stage. Um, you talked about a very interesting industry, maritime. And if you asked me, I would say no. LinkedIn is not what you want to do. If you ask me, how would you reach these people? I'd probably say, look at mobile marketing, send them text messages. But you had a different experience. Share that story because I feel like it plays very much to this narrative, knowing who you're going after.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have two maritime clients, which I kind of joke around that these are probably the only two maritime clients who are marketing on LinkedIn. So if you go look up maritime, maybe you find them. But we've been running them for over 2 years, and we're targeting ship captains. And we've been running campaigns for over 2 years, and it's not even anything fancy. So if you come to the show and you're like, oh, give me the LinkedIn ad secrets, and how to do this, we're literally running lead gen forms with this resource that they put together and like some case studies, and we're getting like tons of leads with a small budget. I think it's like $2,000 a month. Like we're not spending much, and we're getting leads, and they're happy. Like it's a relatively small company, so they have like one or two salespeople for these companies that are actively working these leads, and they're relatively large deal sizes because of it's like SaaS for maritime. And they're finding a lot of success. Now, you might now think like, okay, LinkedIn, yes, ship captains. That's the audience I think about. But we are finding success. And my perspective on why is one, I don't know, maybe being at sea is lonely, and you can only scroll TikTok so much before you're like, okay, I need some substance, and maybe they're hopping over to LinkedIn. I don't know, but they're on there. But then two is that those markets are not being inundated by everybody else. So there's not like people reaching out to them to generate leads for ship captains. There's not people reaching out for like outsourced IT or to optimize their website for SEO. There's none of that. So it's a less saturated market. So we're able to reach them with like a relatively low budget. So if you're kind of watching this and you're like in a smaller kind of niche market and you're considering LinkedIn, that might actually be an advantage for you that market is not saturated. And I don't think there are other maritime clients or maritime companies or plastic injection molding or chemical manufacturing. Maybe there are. And if you are, like, there's some opportunity for you on LinkedIn. Maybe.
I love that idea of blue ocean versus red ocean. I feel like,
Mhm.
in MarTech, that's our industry. It's redder than red. You could put a bull in front of the LinkedIn screen and that bull would probably go mad because that's how red that ocean is, because everybody's spending money on LinkedIn, driving the cost up. But we got a good question from Mark. And I kind of had my personal conviction on whether or not I want to use LinkedIn Ads Network when setting up my ads. But what's your take on using the LinkedIn Ads Network?
Don't use LinkedIn Audience Network. So LinkedIn Audience Network has come like a little bit of a ways, but there's some uses for it. So I'll give you an example. 99% of the time, I'm going to say don't use LinkedIn Audience Network. The whole power of LinkedIn is that you want to actually be on the platform. Like you have the credibility of the platform. You have people that are on LinkedIn for different reasons than they're on Facebook, than they're on Reddit, than they're on X. You have them in like a good state of mind. And if you're going to spend money on LinkedIn, you ideally want that to be placed inside of LinkedIn, not farmed out to its third-party network of sites. That's my general kind of rule. There was a client that was in the construction software company. They were named Raken, Raken. We're not with them anymore, so I'll say their name. But they were in the construction software, and the audience that we were going after were kind of blue-collar folks, and we were able to identify the companies, but it was difficult to find the actual kind of individuals. Now, there was a portion of that audience that was active on LinkedIn. Maybe they were updating their resume or they were looking for a job. I don't know why they're on LinkedIn, but we were able to deliver some impressions there. But we actually duplicated a campaign that we were running primarily on LinkedIn, enabled audience network, and then we allocated like a smaller portion of the daily budget to that just to expand the cold reach of our targeting to that audience, because one of the superpowers of LinkedIn is the ability to do targeting. When you think about Facebook or other platforms, people don't typically go on there to update their job titles, but they do on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn allows you to target those by those job titles. So if you know the exact companies that you want to target and you know the personas at those companies you want to target, that's one of the superpowers of LinkedIn. So you can use LinkedIn Audience Network, but my recommendation would be it's only if you're struggling to deliver impressions on the platform for cold audiences. If it's for retargeting, you're better off using another DSP like StackAdapt. But you can use it for cold audiences, but I would recommend duplicating your original campaign that's designed for in-feed placement and then allocating a smaller portion of that budget to those campaigns. And then be sure that you go through the category exclusions for LinkedIn Audience Network and exclude gambling sites, dating sites. What are some of the other ones? I haven't used it in so long, but there's like, you can go in there and categorically, there's some that just like, why would I want to show up on Hinge? You know, my ads for my B2B SaaS, right? Like, you probably don't want to be there.
I love that. Since we're talking about budgets, I wanted to probe deeper into something that when we first talked, you totally blew my mind with. The idea of being creative and running LinkedIn ads for brand awareness, especially essentially for free, if you figure out the mechanics of how you set the budget and the goals. Can you talk about that? Because everybody wants free stuff, and if you can generate it yourself, that's nice.
Yeah, so there's little like hacks to do this. So I'm going to give you a very specific thing that you can do. And there'll be a few other of these things too. Like I can tell you how to check and see how active an audience is before you even spend $1 on the platform, which is really helpful if you're trying to feel out what opportunity looks like. But I'll give you a very specific tactic that you can use to do two things for you. One, you can get free impressions, and who doesn't like free impressions? And there's an asterisk by that, by the way, you know, for free, because it's not a guarantee, but you know, let's say virtually free impressions. And then two is you can get insights into how your audience engages with LinkedIn and what device they're using to actually access the platform. So what you do, create your ad account, get that all set up. You create a website visit campaign with a text ad as the ad type. Now, text ads are desktop only ads. And if you go into your LinkedIn on your computer, sometimes you'll see like right above your feed, there's like a single line that goes across. That's a text ad. Or sometimes it'll be on the right-hand side. You wouldn't confuse them with follower ads or spotlight ads. The follower ads and the spotlight ads are the ones that use your profile picture in the actual ad. The text ad is just text only, but sometimes it'll have like the company's logo next to it. But the point is, it very much just looks like an ad. Like you can tell it's an ad. And because it's on desktop and not mobile, you don't get like a lot of accidental clicks. So if you do a website visit campaign and you use text ads, it forces you to do manual bidding. You cannot do maximum delivery. You have to do manual bidding. So you can drop that manual bid down low, like drop it down to like $2 and then add in your text ads, you know, do like 10 different text ads. You can use ChatGPT or whatever AI you want to just do kind of variations of it. The point is like the text ads are not going to generate pipeline for you or not going to do this incredible thing of like, you know, doing brand with recall for you. The point is just to have your brand kind of show up and just get your name out there. So you run that and what'll happen is because you're bidding on it and because of website visit objective, you only get charged if people click. And because most people don't click on it because they very much see it as an ad, you basically never get charged. And you can just get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of impressions for free. And you just get nothing charged for it. I did this for a client that was in the HR kind of software space. They had a program that allowed you to be able to communicate with non-desk employees. So they were looking at kind of like blue collar kind of industries where HR is communicating with people out in the field. But we had a hypothesis on which people we could access on the platform and when they were most active. So we basically took the HR leaders that we were targeting and we split it up by seniority. So we went, you know, CXO, which is basically CHRO, VP of HR, director of HR, marketing manager, and then like senior, like a benefits analyst or something. We basically run like 4 or 5 text ad campaigns in parallel. Why? Because it didn't cost us anything. And then the second part that I was talking about is the benefit of doing this is not only do you get free impressions because people are clicking on them, but 2, since text ads are only delivered on desktop, you can run campaigns like this for months at a time, look at the performance data, and then look to see when impressions were delivered, and then figure out which days people are on LinkedIn more. And if you're using like a ad scheduling software or you're doing this manually, you can prioritize which days you want to show up and maybe spend more money to get in front of your audiences, because you know that they're actually on the platform more on Tuesdays or Thursdays, which, by the way, Friday is the lowest day, as you might imagine. Monday is not the highest day. Actually, Tuesday is the highest day that I've seen people on LinkedIn on a computer. And
So
then
you're
it just tanks on the weekends.
weekends is not it. So all of the doom scrollers on the couch on Saturday night, that's not it.
No, that's not it. Maybe they're doing it on their mobile device, but they're not doing it on their computer.
Oh, computer. Okay, fair.
Mhm.
So we're talking about tactics, and I feel like one of the most disappointing things for most people these days is what you mentioned earlier, lead gen forms. Because if you go and ask for extra money for your LinkedIn, and I've been in that boat, you go and ask your boss, hey, can I have 10,000 more to spend on LinkedIn because XYZ you articulated, they give it to you, and then the question comes back, what did we get out of it? Right? The scariest question. And you can get creative articulating that, but people expect names, and lead gen form is the one thing that is the closest that you can get to it with. And I feel like LinkedIn lead gen forms, they just don't work because
No.
people don't want to fill out 3 fields to get something that they have not seen. What's your take on that?
So there's a few ways to do this. So I'm keeping in mind that my answer is going to be heard by different people in different situations. So I'll try to answer it in a way that makes sense for everybody. So sometimes this strategy works. Take the maritime one, for example. Like, we're straight up running lead gen forms and people are like, yes, first name, last name, oh, work email, I got to type this in, you got it. And they're submitting it through. Other industries, it doesn't necessarily work because people know that as soon as they fill out that form, they're going to get thrown into some sequence and there's going to be an SDR and text and phone call or whatever else. So they're reluctant to do this, to your point, for something that they haven't seen before. My general stance on this is you don't want to put something behind a lead gen form that you wouldn't charge for. So if you would charge for it and you think people would pay for this, then go ahead and gate it. Like, because it's worth it. If it's some case study or white paper that you dug up from like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and you think this is going to be your lead magnet that's going to work for you, don't even bother doing it, because it's not going to be valuable to the audience that you're, trying to hang it and dangle in front of as the carrot. 2 more things. One is lead gen forms can work, but it's typically going to be towards people that have already interacted or know your brand. So here's what happens if you go the other route. Let's say you get $10,000 and you want to run lead gen forms because it's 1-to-1. So when you see it in HubSpot, you're going to be able to attribute this back to your LinkedIn campaigns. You're going to get a pat on the back saying, you did a good job. This lead came from LinkedIn and we can match this 1-to-1. Okay, great. You like running lead gen forms. What ends up happening, especially if you run this to cold audiences, one of 3 things is going to happen. One, people are going to fill out the lead gen form and they're never going to respond to you, ever. So it'll be a lead on paper, but you're never going to hear from them ever again. 2 is you reach out to them, they do respond, and they don't even remember who you are. This one's always funny to me because I'm like, how many lead gen forms are you filling out where you don't remember? Like this one, this was like 15 minutes ago. Okay, whatever. They don't remember who you are. Or 3 is they did fill out the lead gen form. They do remember who you are, but they're not ready for a conversation because they were just interested in whatever information that you were giving, but now is not the right time. No matter what, it ends up being that it doesn't generate pipeline. So my opinion on this, and again, to each their own and what makes sense, my opinion on this is it's typically better to run lead gen forms as a off-ramp for either middle of funnel or bottom of funnel. And just for people that have already interacted with your brand, you've already started to saturate, you can run a lead gen form, and the likelihood of that actually turning into pipeline or sales conversation greatly increases. And that's what you should care about, is not, what is my CPL, which, yes, that's important. And you need to generate leads, and sales is hungry, and you have to show that you're actually doing something. But the thing that we actually care about is pipeline and revenue, not the in-platform pretty kind of CPL. And then the last thing that I'll mention, going back to your point about people not wanting to fill out something that they can't see for themselves, is you can use a document ad. So if you do have something that's actually reasonable and it's good, and let's say it's a 20-page document, or 10-page document, you can let people preview the first 4 or 5 pages. And if they like it and it's enticing enough, then you can give them the option to download. But it does reduce some of that friction because you're showing them pieces of what this is.
I actually like that last one because I feel like with any lead gen form, like you're asking me for my stuff, but I don't even know if what you got is worth my time. So I feel forced to give you my janesmith@yahoo.com email address. By the way, works great. I think I got like 15 of them. But
Nice.
you're right. The lead gen form amnesia settles in. I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So we talked about kind of tactical stuff. We talked about audience and segmentation and different options on LinkedIn. I want to talk about the goals. You know, how you have awareness, and LinkedIn actually now sends you a report. They show you the funnel, and that funnel, of course, is arbitrary. That's how they think about the different tactics and how their DSP and the algorithm work in the back. But they show you the funnel, and you choose the tactic based on what you want. And wouldn't all of us want pipeline? So you choose visits to the website as your ultimate goal, because we all have been taught that website is your holy grail, bring more people to the website. And then Rand Fishkin's conversation comes up, you monetize the traffic, you hopefully brought the right people to the site, right? But the lead gen piece we discussed, that's the LinkedIn's bottom of the funnel, right? Not for everyone. The awareness piece we discussed, where you can drive it in many different ways. But I feel like right now LinkedIn wants people, like all the other walled garden platforms, to stay on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
choosing that website visits goal, is it even the right way to think about it? Maybe like everything that I just said is like an old way and not mainstream way these days to figure out how you set up your campaign and what your goals should be.
Yeah. Ultimately, the goal that you want is you want people to know who you are, what you do, and the problems you solve. And a way that you can do that, website visit is part of this because you do want to drive traffic. It's going to generate signals for you. And obviously somebody that visits your website is, theoretically more interested than somebody that just clicks see more on a truncated post. But you kind of need like a little bit of everything. So if you say like, well, what's the best like dish to make, like what ingredients like should you use, like is it salt, is it pepper, it's like, well, you want to use like a little bit of everything actually depending on what you're trying to make. So I'd say the same thing is true here. I think initially what people should do, and this is not a fun one, and good luck kind of pitching this, but we'll talk about that hopefully. Maybe we have time. But what you should optimize for is in-feed consumption. So to your point, yeah, LinkedIn prefers people to stay on the platform. They want eyeballs on there. That's how they're going to get impressions. So they want people to stay there and consume content. So that's really what you want. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it zero-click ads. You can call it, dark social. You can call it like all these different things. But really what you want is you want people to consume your content. And so the type of objective that you use and the goals you set is going to be really important here. I'll give you an example of what an actual funnel, can look like for you. And not saying this is the one that you should do, but just an example of a funnel that you should use. So your top of funnel campaigns, you have your cold audience, you're doing some retargeting to people that are visiting your website, going to your company page, you have some first party data, you have this kind of middle of funnel layer like already kind of simmering, but now you need to fill it because that audience isn't really growing fast enough and you need to kind of go get new people. So you can run top of funnel campaigns that are going to have either a brand awareness or engagement objective. And this is going to depend on what your audience size is. Now, the key thing to know about all of these different objectives, like forget about what their names are. The two things you need to know about any objective that you set is what is the algorithm optimizing towards? And then how are you getting charged? Those are the two things that you need to be aware of. So for brand awareness is optimizing towards reach. So if I'm targeting 100,000 people, which I'm not recommending, but if I'm targeting 100,000 people, then my ad frequency for that audience is going to be relatively low. It might be like 1.3, 1.2 over a 30-day period. Why? Because LinkedIn isn't trying to show my ad to the same person over and over. It's just trying to reach as many people in that audience as possible. Whereas if I pick engagement as the objective, what's going to happen is LinkedIn is optimizing towards the cohort of people in my audience that's most likely to engage with content. So it's not trying to just reach as many people as possible. Your ad frequency is going to be higher because it's trying to get people to actually click on and engage with your content. And you're going to be charged, let's say, cost per click versus for brand awareness, you will pay like a CPM bid. Same thing is true for website visit campaigns. Website visit campaigns is a little bit different. for a website campaign, website visit campaign objective, you are optimizing for people that are most likely to click and go to your website, and you're only going to get charged if you're doing manual bidding. You're only going to get charged if somebody clicks and actually goes to your website. If they click see more on the truncated post, if they like it, if they comment on it, if they click to go to your LinkedIn company page, you are charged $0. You don't get charged for that. You only get charged if they click on the image or they click on the CTA button or that little banner at the bottom and go to your website. That's how you're charged. So going back to kind of the goals and like, what you're selecting, you need to understand the mechanics of how these objectives work, because the name is misleading. You look at like lead generation campaigns. Lead generation campaigns, you're charged if somebody breathes really hard on the ad. Like for anything, you get charged. If they like it, if they comment on it, if they click on the company page, guess what? You're getting charged. And that's why lead gen campaigns can be so expensive. And why I typically don't recommend running them at the top of funnel, because you basically are just kind of paying for, everything. And now I forgot where I was going with this.
I think you mentioned product pages. So we were looking at all the different objectives and how do you choose what it is that you need based on the goals that you have. But you mentioned company pages and product pages. And I'm super curious because, again, the knowing minds are sharing wisdom, whether it's true or not. I'm reading it. I'm in the echo chamber, right? So running events on LinkedIn and pointing to events from your company page, or pointing from your ads to your product pages, or should you even have product pages on LinkedIn? Is it a smart thing to do to kind of, multi-thread into your account presence, or is that something that, it's an option, but you shouldn't do it, invest time and money and effort into? What is, like, in terms of destination and where you want people to land, given all of the mechanics behind the scenes on LinkedIn, do you guys see more clients choosing to keep people on LinkedIn and take them to their company page or an event page or a product page? Or do people still want to drive traffic home to the website?
It depends on the maturity of the company. So you can think of product pages like little landing pages that are just like on LinkedIn. So this comes down to like a company maturity level and then the complexity of the products that you have. If what you're selling is complex and warrants its own kind of product page, and that's part of your funnel, is you want people to have this additional information inside the platform, then it would make sense for you to create product pages. But like the lower barrier to entry is actually just to have your company page. And I'll clarify this. I don't ever run campaigns where my goal is to send people to the company page on LinkedIn. Like I never do that. It's a byproduct. It's also another thing that people try to focus on. And I see this happen in conversations where it's pressure from leadership and people are like, how do we grow our follower count on LinkedIn? We want to get more followers.
That's exactly where I'm going with that. Yes, yeah. Yes. But that was a goal in my previous company for our social media person. And I mean, I empathize with her a lot. She had the goal to grow the following 20%. Well, we were in the industry where it was not growing, it was actually dying. So the goal should have been slow the death of the following because they were just dropping off. It's not the right industry, but yes, please.
Yes. Yeah, but there's no inherent value in just having, it's a vanity metric. Even if you have people following your company page and you're posting on there, I guess like Richard Van Bloom, he had posted about the percentages. So they did like this report that they do. And I forget, it was like less than 1% of something of content that shows up in the feed is from like a company page, but it was like a very, very small percentage. So if you're going after followers as the goal, it's like, okay, why? Like what is a goal? Usually what it is that it's the person's perception is that followers is a path to getting them towards like revenue and pipeline. And it's just a conversation to have, like, what is the actual ultimate goal? It's the same thing when somebody reaches out to us and they say, hey, we're trying to get our CPL down from, $100 a lead down to $50 a lead. I'm like, okay, why? It's like, well, out of every 10 leads that we generate, 4 of them are actually, qualified. So if we get this down to $50, I'm like, well, hold on a second. Wouldn't it be better just to have 5 leads that are all qualified, versus 10 leads where 4 of them are qualified? So then the CPL really isn't the issue here. The issue is that you want to get qualified people in the door. So that's the thing that we should address. But the followers one, I think it's just a common misconception that having more followers means that they're going to see more of your content and that they're higher interest, and that like perceivably it does look better if you have followers. But from everything that I've seen, most of the people that follow company pages are people that are looking for jobs.
Interesting. Mary had a good question, and Mary is the subject matter expert in all things LinkedIn in-house. So she wants to know more about ad scheduling. So how much of a difference does it make in cost efficiency for advertisers?
Huge difference. If you actually have the data to schedule things appropriately. So we have a client right now. I don't know, I think it's been like almost 4 years. Been working with this guy. He's in the UK. He spends about 30,000 pounds a month, and it's very very lead gen heavy. So he has like a low kind of barrier to entry to kind of get people in, and then he has this kind of back end system to grow them. So it works for us. But like overnight, or on the weekends, the CPL would skyrocket. And it's, well, why? It's, well, because there's less people on the platform, so it costs more to get in front of the ones that do, and then the conversion rates are actually lower. But we had months of data. So we took all of the leads that he had, we exported them as a CSV, and then we did an analysis to find out which blocks of time the CPL was actually better for us. And so we shut off campaigns when the CPL was going up to like 200 pounds or something, and that had a huge difference on our CPL, because we're just focusing on the pockets of time where we were getting it at like 15 pounds or 20 pounds or 25 pounds. So you compare that versus where it's like 200 pounds overnight, or on the weekends when it's much much higher. It made a huge difference in kind of in cost efficiency. But again, the caveat to that is you need to actually have the data to support it. You can do things intuitively, and you can kind of test this, and you can say, well, people tend to convert more from desktop versus mobile, especially for older demographics. Some of the younger ones, like, they do everything on their cell phone. They'll buy a car on their cell phone. So that's not necessarily the case. But it needs to be based on some data, and you can set up some of these tests to go ahead and do this. One disclaimer I'll give to anybody that's thinking about doing this is, if you do any type of ad scheduling, don't ever use it with a cost cap bidding strategy. So cost cap bidding basically goes into a 14-day learning period. Anytime you change bid, turn the campaign on and off, or adjust the audience, if you are running some type of ad scheduling with cost cap bidding, you're basically resetting the learning period over and over and over again, and you will never get any type of good efficiency with your campaigns.
Speaking of algorithm, Mary's comment just reminded me of something. So we were talking about all the hot things that are hot till they're not on LinkedIn, right? And video is one of those things. Or LinkedIn used to be inundated with video, and the latest updates, like, no, video is not the number one thing. The number one thing right now, Mary, I'm paraphrasing what you said, is things that create value, things that deliver value, high value content. How much broader can you get? And yet,
Yeah.
this is what we're optimizing for, right? What do you guys recommend when it comes to the type of content and the to drive the highest engagement, the quality of content to drive the highest engagement?
Yeah. So we might have a skewed opinion based on just like what we've done and what we've seen work, but like, it doesn't need to be high production content. Again, caveat, like, if you are like a video production company and you're advertising and you're just going to shoot videos on your iPhone, then not great, because you should be using your own product. But I tend to see like real or raw video content do pretty well for us. We do thought leadership content for clients as well too. And we'll use paid ads as a way to guarantee distribution of that content, because going back to the report, Mary, that you linked in here, organic reach has been on kind of a downward trend, and unfortunately it's going more to like pay to play. So if you're posting content and you want to make sure the right people are seeing it, then you need to put some dollars behind it to make sure that it's actually going to the right people. But in terms of the content, video content's useful because it's harder to fake as like a AI generated content. So this is just my opinion. I'm not speaking for anyone else. If I see video content and someone actually recorded it, like, I feel better about the content that I'm consuming, because I feel like this is authentic, this is real content. It's much harder to just like use AI for this. The other portion to this is that LinkedIn is pushing really, really hard on video and being kind of video forward. On the mobile app now, they have like the video tab that you can go through and you can kind of scroll through. It's kind of like, I think, like Instagram Reels, or I'm not super savvy on other platforms, so maybe there's another one that's similar. But they're pushing really hard for video content. But for us personally, we're using quite like a mix. So image content, text only content, articles. There's not like one that's just better than the other. Like you shouldn't just do all video content, because some people are never going to watch your video. So they don't watch video. So you should run a variety of it, but videos should certainly be part of it, your strategy. And if you're uncomfortable behind a camera, then you should probably find somebody on your team who is.
So I love that you kind of ended on that note, because that was my next question. And I'm going to sandwich in a bunch of stuff in this question. There's a lot to unpack. So early in the year, I remember going to conferences, and like the crystal ball conversations of what the year holds always reference the importance of founder brands. And founder brands, that's like this blanket term, right? It could be the solo entrepreneur trying to advertise their company, having a big microphone, trying to do thought leadership on LinkedIn. Don't we know them all? The talking heads, right, in their own echo chamber, regurgitating the same stuff. Or it could be an employee, the very person that you mentioned, to put in front of the camera, who kind of becomes, and this is the term that I adopted. I'm not saying it came from anywhere, so you don't like it, don't use it. They become mascots of their company, right? They becomes the person who is the thought leader for that organization, even though they're not the CEO, they're not, sometimes not in the highest leadership, but they're really good with content and have interesting things to share. So the thought leadership post is where I'm going with this, become a thing, right? And you said the organic content is kind of not performing as good because it's pay to play. So you want to boost certain things for thought leadership ads and use your mascot to send the message out there. But then you compare your engagement, and everybody wants to measure things to know how well the dollars were spent, against someone who is using either it's influencers, and I just discovered recently what it costs to pay to get your message out there in 1,000 mouths. And the more you pay, the more mouths will regurgitate it, right? Even though they've never seen what you even do or what your tool does. So how do you brace with, explaining this to leadership, the money you put behind things, and then the competitors having hundreds of engagements, synthetic or real, that we don't know, versus your thought leadership and the little pool of money that you decide to spend, maybe not delivering those results? Do you pack up your toys and go home? Do you say that I'm going to try it again tomorrow? Or
Yeah.
What's the sentiment?
Yeah. I have fun with this one because from my perspective, it's like, okay, so you need to figure out something. Like you got to figure out something to do. Otherwise, it's just like, what's the other option? Is like close the business, call it a day, pack up your toys, pack up your business, and just say, hey, we had a good run. We can't compete anymore. Like, so two things. You don't have to try to dominate the world. If you're like an example, if you're like a smaller CRM shop, like you're in a niche space, let's say you do like electronic manufacturing kind of CRM, then you're thinking, man, I have to compete with HubSpot and Salesforce and Pipedrive and these other ones, like go high level. I don't have that kind of money. Okay, you don't need to do that. Find your kind of niche, find your kind of small section of the market to go and to dominate and to speak to that particular niche. So that's one way, but the comparison is real. Like I feel this too. Like, we talked about Richard Van Bloom, like that article, he put 337 reactions on that. I think one of the last ones I did had like 5, on there. So it's easy to kind of look at these things and kind of compare yourself and say, or the other one is they're like comment AI for my workflow. Like I fired my entire marketing and sales team and I fired my family. And I have like an N8N automation that does it all, comment for that. Like those get a ton of engagement. And it's crazy to me. You see that getting engagement, but then you have something that's actually beneficial and smart and unique, and it doesn't have that same reach. So, my perspective, so there's reach versus relevance. I can reach 1,000 people, but if none of those people can actually buy from me, then who cares? It's likes. And yes, my little primate brain loves to see the dopamine hits of people liking and validating it. But honestly, it doesn't really matter. You want the engagement, or you want the relevant people actually seeing and engaging your content. So that's one. You should measure it based off of that, not just some like number. Like look at the demographics of your posts, see who's engaging with it. And if they fall within the people that can actually buy from you, then that's actually, what matters. And then the other part to this, kind of like going on the pay to play line, is if you're posting this organic content and you find the things that are reaching the right people, the right types of relevant audiences, then that's your signal that you should probably take some of that content and start to promote it. Now we're doing this ourselves. So what happens is if somebody books a call with us, they get entered into our deal velocity campaign group. And they're basically, we're just going to like dominate their feed for the next 30 days. So anybody that's in the buying committee, anybody that's in sales or marketing, they're going to see Impactable like everywhere for a month because we want to help dominate that. And the budget's actually relatively small, but it's being smart about where you're spending the budget. So I'd say the same thing is true here. You see these other people that have all this engagement, like, so what? Who cares? Like, focus on your corner of the market and try to dominate that small portion.
It's like that notion. I remember I spent 10 years road racing, and I was training with a junior Olympics team at one time. And we had this coach, and he was so old. He just seemed older than dirt, but he was really good at what he did. He had all of this brilliant advice, and he would always say, run your own race, right?
Yeah.
But it's easy to get distracted again, look at benchmarks and what everybody else is doing. But the point of running your own race and staying confident, I think that's kind of the summary of what you said.
Yeah. And again, like, what's your other option? Just stop marketing. Like, you need to do something. You need to figure something out. I think one of the easiest, like, low friction ways, if you're smart and you know what you're doing and you have good things to say, then, like the old song goes, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. You have that information, get it out there, put it out there in the world. And I will say this as somebody that's been posting content for a while, sometimes it gets a little stagnant. Because it's like, okay, I'm going to say the same thing again. Like, Mark, you asked about LinkedIn Audience Network. I'm like, don't do that. Turn off audience expansion or you retargeting. It's kind of like you repeat the same things over and over. So what I do personally is I try to have fun with it. So I use memes. I'm a little bit silly. I try to have fun with these things, and people connect with other people. So don't look at other people and think you need to be like them. Like, you need to be like Richard. You need to be like, some of the other influencers out there. Just be like yourself. Be you. And people will see that, and some people will resonate with it. Some people won't resonate with it. Like, who cares? Just get out there, be yourself. And it's easier to maintain if you're yourself versus trying to be somebody else.
So as we get closer to the end of this session, let me ask you this one question. I've asked other guests the same thing. Like, if you shared one takeaway from all of this for the audience, like, we're going into the new year. I love stuff at the end of the old year because now you can dangle the new year and the coming of the new and everything clean, shiny, done afresh. So what's that one recommendation you could give people when it comes to spending their money on LinkedIn, figuring out budgets? What's that one thing that they could try so that they could improve what they're doing today?
Spend the first 80% of your effort for running LinkedIn ads on really nailing down the audience. Like, that's where I see it missed so many times. Even if you think like, no, I can just use the targeting within LinkedIn and I can nail down my audience. No, use whatever data vendor that you have, really, really nail down the audience. They should be the people that they have, this criteria, this criteria, this criteria. If they get on a call with us or they get into our pipeline, it's a done deal. Like, we're going to close this particular group. Start with that audience. Really, really nail that down. Get an account list created. Move that account list into Campaign Manager, and then target the relevant personas at those companies. Don't try to go so broad, blow your whole budget, and end up not really having anything to show for it, and then miss out on an opportunity to be able to scale the channel. Start there and really, really nail the audience. There's other things that can be forgiven if you do things wrong with the campaign setup. There is zero forgiveness for targeting the wrong audience.
I love that. Thank you so much. I'm going to open the floor for questions if anyone has any questions. I feel like we covered so much, and I'm surprised nobody asked, what's the minimum and what's the maximum of what I can spend on LinkedIn? I feel like that's one of those, do or die conversations. It sends you that report of how your competitors are doing, and when you see the huge I've experienced that in every company I've been at. You get your little ball over here, and the competitor has the bar that's up there. And the question becomes, what should I stop doing to take money from there and add it to here? I don't know if you have any comments on that. We'll wait for some questions for a couple of minutes, and then we'll continue on.
Yeah.
So Mary has a question. I think JD touched on this, but the industries can be a bit broad. So generally it's worth it to upload an account list as opposed to use native industry targeting. I'm actually curious. So what is better? Because they do have industries, but then you have your own list.
Yeah, don't use their industries. They updated. It used to be like 75 industries. Now they have like 400 something industries in there. But don't use it because people, like companies, can list whatever industry that they want. And I've seen this happen a lot of times where like the industry isn't actually what they're in, or they're across kind of multiple industries because it's like a service-based business, but they have a software as well too. So your best option is to build your account list outside of LinkedIn and have that be really clean, and then import that account list into LinkedIn, and then do not use any of the industry filters, the company size filters, none of those things. So like from a targeting perspective, the exclusion criteria is way more powerful than the inclusion criteria. So if you're using an account list, you should 100% trust that list that you've curated. Move that in. Don't use any of the company level filters within LinkedIn, and just focus on the contact level filters to find the right people at those companies.
Amazing. I feel like we touched everything. We have not talked about measurement, and that could be a session, honestly, within and of itself. And
Yeah.
just recently, actually this morning, I saw a post from someone at Lovable where, they were bashing the whole notion of attribution, saying, no, you should go and do media mix modeling measurement. And that's the only thing that you should do. Whether you have enough data or not, that's a separate question. But that's going to be the conversation for next week, which I'm super happy about, because it will continue this notion of targeting and measuring what it is that you're getting back. But with this, Mary, I will pass it over to you. And JD, thank you so much for sharing the wealth of experience that you have.
Glad to be here. Thank you.